The first question is, what kind of prosthesis can we make with Medit Design? Does it include implants or ortho sectors as well?
Okay, that's a good question. So think of Medit Design as a real powerful workhorse. It can do temporaries and designs, but it's better whenever possible to use something like Medit Temporary or Medit Splint to do things with like a nice workflow. But Medit Design gives you the power to do lots of things. So like, for example, in one of the cases I did recently, I made an implant provisional and I made a opening for where the screw access would be, and I estimated things, and you can do all types of prosthesis from an implant provisional to a surgical guide. You can make you can literally design wax ups or even like veneers with it. But in general, Medit Design has all these powerful tools, but some of the other apps give you like a more streamlined workflow to doing that. So whenever possible, you try to use those other apps, but then when you need to do things that can't be accomplished with those other apps, Medit Design has the tools you need to do all sorts of things like that. One of the really cool cases I did recently was I did a digital extraction of teeth and made some Pontics that you can either use as a Maryland bridge or as a Pontic to put in an Essex tray. So it can do these more complex things, but like I said, whenever possible, try to use one of the other apps so you have a very streamlined process.
All right, thank you. And can we go to the next question? All right, question number 2. What are the advantages of using the Medit Design app compared to the Exocad or 3Shape?
Okay, so I've seen 3Shape used a little bit. I don't have too much experience, but I know enough to kind of make the comparison, and I have a lot of experience with Exocad. So advantages of Medit Design, one, and it's a big advantage, is it's very powerful and it comes for free at the moment. So it comes with the Medit Link software. So you have this really powerful tool that you can use at no charge. And that's just a huge advantage for so many people that are trying to get into these things. I also think, honestly, that the workflow and the interface is better than Exocad. Exocad has a lot of advanced tools, but it's more, I find Medit Design to be more intuitive, but it looks so simple sometimes that you underestimate its power. So I would say in whole, Medit Design is very powerful, very capable, and it can do a lot of what you would traditionally do with Exocad, but the biggest advantage is it gives you some sort of tool or utility to start getting into design right away, and you can figure out where you need to take it. And then the best part is it keeps improving with time. So if you think you're going to outgrow it, oftentimes you'll find that there's new additions that keep making it more and more powerful. And another thing I was going to say about Medit Design is it's very, very good at aligning things. So like I had a case recently where I wanted to align the preps, the pre-op, the temporaries in the mouth. It can do incredible alignment with automatic alignment, better than I've seen any other software do so far.
Oh, do you really think so?
Really, honestly, yeah, no, seriously, because I even have some of my friends that are Exocad users and I showed them how well it does it and they were impressed. Because with Exocad, you know, like I said, I use Exocad sometimes too, and you have to align with points or you have to select areas, but the automatic alignment that Medit Design can do, I was able to, you know, I'm going to share this probably in one of our next webinars, but I want to show how amazing it is to keep like from beginning to end all your different scans for a patient in the right orientation. So you kind of have like layer by layer by layer, and it's just the best to do it. It's the cleanest, it's the simplest, it looks the nicest, and it's also the easiest to share. You know, another huge advantage of Medit is you can have it on every computer in your office, you can have it on your laptop, you can work on it from home. And that translates to if I want to share it with the patient, if I want to look at it from home, so much more convenient than the restrictions you have with the other softwares with their licenses, one computer. So like I really find myself using it more and more just because of convenience and the power that it has.
Thank you for the answering, because we've got a lot of this kind of questions from our users.
Yeah, no, it looks, until you start experimenting with it, you might think it's not as powerful, but when you start to see it can do everything from transform, copy, duplicate, the things I showed in the webinar, you can start really seeing, and then there's really no limit. I mean, I think the limit is your comfort zone with doing computer-aided design.
For sure. Right, go to the next question. Is there any
Yes.
work that you still find the conventional way more convenient and accurate for, or which work do you think is the best to be done digitally way rather than the conventional way?
I like this question a lot because I'm a very traditional style of dentist. I'm using more digital now than ever, but that's not to say I don't use digital because it's easier. I always want to use whatever's the best. So I started, for example, doing digital printing just to do my designs for cosmetic cases digitally, and I was printing them for that purpose. And then fast forward to now, I'm doing milled restorations, printed restorations, I'm doing provisionals, and I've just found that in general, once you've mastered it, there's no comparison. Like the precision on my indirect restorations from a digital workflow, so I'll scan with Medit, and then I'll mill the restoration using my mill, it's the Ceramill DRS. I get the best margins I've ever had, and I really didn't think I had a problem with margins. I would never have said that my margins need improvement, but now I can see that that extra amount of precision and detail and predictability is worth it. My occlusal adjustment is less. My digital designs, there's no going back. I'm not ever going back to a wax up, because with a digital design, I can have the patient's face, I can have their scan, I can do the whole design, I can make changes quickly. So I think there's very little things that are better with the conventional way, but one thing that I am still doing in the conventional way to some degree is my veneers, because when it comes to the artistic ability to mimic nature, that's the type of dentistry I do, it's called biomimetic dentistry, then I don't want a monolithic restoration. You can mill something and cut it back, but the most beautiful veneers I've ever done and continue to do are feldspathic. So what happens in those cases is we design them digitally, we come up with like the wax up and the shape, but then when it comes time to doing the final production, that design is our guide to make them in an analog way by hand. And I've been lecturing a lot about this, but the combination of the artistic side of doing things the conventional way with the precision and technology of digital, it unlocks tons of possibilities. And I think over time, we'll continue to get more and more into the digital side. But for now, I think the artistic component is the part where the conventional way is superior, and you can find ways to blend that in anywhere from stain and glaze all the way up to doing it by hand, but still having done a large majority of the case and even your final impression in a digital way.
So it seems many users still considering it, right?
Right.
So can I ask? Yeah, can I ask,
Sure.
do you think how long does it take to get used to it with the digital way?
I learn quickly because I'm really good with technology. So I think it depends on what type of person you are. But I think the advice I would give somebody who's interested in getting into it is to get it and start with what you can. Because in the early days, I didn't even try to take I didn't even try to take my final impressions with digital scan. I got it for both Invisalign and for diagnostic reasons. And that was before Medit. Then I slowly got into doing more. And once I got the Medit, I decided I'm going to try to do my impressions with this. But because I was reluctant or scared of creating problems, I did both. I would take a digital scan and a PVS impression. So I invested a little bit of time and safety to do that, but I kept seeing over and over that not only was it, two things. We saw there's a little difference between a regular impression and a digital scan. But the crazy thing was the digital scan was the more accurate. Like if you adjusted based on the regular impression, you lost a little bit of precision. Oftentimes I'm referring to the occlusion, but sometimes on inlays and onlays, even just the proximal walls, if you were using your stone model, you lost precision compared to if you said, okay, I'm just gonna follow the digital and stick with it and not make adjustments until I try it in. So my advice would be to get it and start simple, start a little bit, build up your confidence. It's a learning curve like anything else, but I think in a matter of a few months of committed effort, you could make the transition to doing not only your scans digital, but unlocking all the different areas that you can, or all the different utilities with digital dentistry. And one of the things that's amazing to me is that Medit gives you these tools, because without all these apps, you have a digital scan and you can send to a lab, but you're not really unlocking any major change except getting rid of impressions. It's when you can take that digital information and actually create something, whether it's a provisional, a final restoration, a night guard. That's when the digital world really unlocks possibilities for so many different practice types in the world.
Thank you. And can you go to the next question?
Sure.
Do you think print out the designed wax model? Do you think 3D printing is accurate enough?
Yeah. So that's a good question, because that's exactly what we're kind of talking about. I started with doing my digital designs, printing them, and then I would do my mock-up or my test run or my test drive, whatever you want to call it. I would use that model, make a putty from it, and do it in the mouth. And as time has gone on, I mean, obviously there's some variations among printers, but the scan data is accurate enough. And I'm using sprint rate printers personally. There's a lot of other great printers too, but precision is not a problem. We're getting very predictable, high quality results, and especially true when it comes to the design aspects of doing like a mock-up or even temporaries. These are all very accurate. You can print it out, try it on the model, and you'll be surprised how consistent it is. So do it all the time, and I think that there's really no reservation or hesitation to do this.
Yeah, we've got this kind of question too from the users, right? A lot.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, you have to, the thing is, I want to say, like I said, I experimented with doing, I would take a backup impression and check these things, but you get to a point where you lose that sort of fear, because once you see it enough, and I do think when you start, you have to calibrate, your staff, your printer, everything. So it's always good to ease into it, but I would say there's a lot of different workflows out there, and there's a lot of different people that are using these printed models for everything from the mock-up to the final design. Printing final restorations is here now. You can print restorations that can be billed as ceramic. So that is really saying that the precision is not only there in printing the models, but even in printing final restoration. So I think there's really no concern here.
All right, can we go to, is it a last question, right?
This is the last question, yeah.
So last question, is it possible to design the surgical guide with Medit Design? Have you ever done it?
So it is possible, because with Medit Design, you can do anything, and I've watched videos on this. I have not done it because we place very little implants in our office, and the specialist I work with, he designs and makes these himself and shares the design with me, or shares the implant position with me. I think it's super important to do all your implants with a fully guided approach, but I'm fortunate to have a specialist that kind of takes over that part and shares the design with me to confirm. So it saves me some time, and it gives me all the benefits of designing myself. But with that said, you can design it. At the moment, you'd be designing a surgical guide that doesn't necessarily have sleeves for the different implants, though that may be coming in the future. For now, you'd be designing a simple surgical guide that gives you the orientation and location, but without actually having the digitally planned implant there, and you can do it. It's a little bit more advanced, but I think that there is discussion of streamlining that process in the upcoming upgrades and additions to the different apps. And I would expect eventually that would be separated from Medit Design into its own workflow, or part of the Splint workflow, or something like that.
All right, thank you. So here's a quick question. So have you done it? Have you ever designed the non-sleeve surgical guide?
Myself? No, I haven't, because I mean, I have in the past, we've printed. So there was a doctor that was in my office doing implants all the time, and he would design them. And this was prior to when we had Medit. He would print them on our printers, and I forget the software that it was at the time. But I personally have never designed a surgical guide, because I've been, like I said, fortunate where whoever was doing it was the one who would be making it. But I know that you can make the non-sleeved surgical guides with Medit Design. I've watched all the videos. I learned a lot from watching those videos about the different things you can do. For example, I used that as inspiration for when I was making a implant provisional without even having the abutment, just using some of the same features and tools to make the screw access opening and everything.
Thank you.